So get ready for Generations of Steel, the ultimate celebration of our national instrument, featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus the talented youth band. Experience the power and passion of Desperados, Shell Invaders, Massey Trinidad All-Stars, First Citizens Supernovas, and the pride of the South, Fun Play. Saturday, July 11th at the iconic Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah. And hear this one. First 800 tickets sold. Admit 2 buses on 1 ticket if bought by Saturday, June 27th.
Presented by Super Panman, Dane Gulston and Friends.
Supported by CCNTV 6, The Express Newspaper, and I-95.5 FM. Generations of Steel, the biggest pan event after Panorama.
You'd be surprised, a lot of the patients who present to us with infection in their feet, the infection would have started several days before. Now, the interesting thing is, neuropathy usually goes hand in hand with peripheral arterial disease. So these patients lose the sensation to feel. Now, they may have the ability to have crude touch or general sensation, but that fine sensation, for instance, when a needle sticks them or a thumbtack sticks them, they would lose that sensation.
Correct. WESN.
Better late than never, I always say. Yeah, it might be a crutch. Sure, Michael Smaller, this is talking about the WSND Continent Capital, and one of the things I didn't speak about yesterday was we had Batman make an appearance one fateful night in Tobago. Unfortunately, the Bat was not able to do its job, or fortunately, I guess, which is one of the most strangest, most interesting, ludicrous, but also, if you strip away the insanity, it is also one of the, in its way, frightening indicators of crime, as multiple individuals decided to take a backhoe to pull out an ATM. One of the things I found interesting is, do they know how much cash is in it, et cetera, et cetera? Like, I don't know how much cash is stored in the ATM. And apparently they were not able to get the ATM, open the ATM, get the money in the ATM, and everything was caught via CCTV footage. And I just found it to be extra ludicrous because it happened in Tobago, Tobago being a smaller island. You can't drive to Tobago. That's the thing with Trinidad. You could leave any far corner of Trinidad and go to any other far corner of Trinidad. And if it's not a place that you frequently go to, you won't be that well known. But Tobago is different. It has more of a single entity environment where, yes, there are different villages, but it's one area of the country that everybody kind of knows everybody. You know, it's one thing for everybody in Mayaro to kind of know everybody, or most people in Diego Martin, although that's, of course, higher population density, to more or less know everybody in Diego Martin, right? And then it was multiple thieves, so you didn't necessarily need people to know all of them to start to figure out who they might be. And then they took a backhoe, which to me, it's kind of hard to have an untraceable backhoe, random backhoe in Tobago. It's probably traceable. And then by tracing the backhoe, you could narrow down the list of suspects who would have stolen it, etc., etc. So now apparently 2 have been caught, and we'll see if they'll get more. But just the audacity of the crime And why I say there's some aspect of it that we need to be concerned about is that, look, it's one thing for you to, you know, break into a place and take whatever you could snatch and grab, or use a weapon to threaten and take whatever they will give you. It's another thing to take a piece of heavy equipment that you may or may not be qualified to use, and then you may or may not be aware of not just what you're doing, but the things around. That level now of property damage and recklessness, it's a new threshold, right? Which could lead to situations that are more dangerous. Like, at what point is someone going to figure, well, if I drive a car into a building, it might be easier to rob it, but they might do it during the day, not during the night, when there might be people inside the building. So the escalation of crime, is it due to desperation? Is it just due to wildness? Because if it's wildness, then it might be a one-off. We have to wait and see. But it was, thankfully, it didn't involve hitting anybody. Therefore, we can take a little bit of entertainment, because one of the things is, why would you dress with a cape? So, of course, he will forever be known as Batman. A couple of things to get through. We'll speak about the situation in Venezuela when Ashraf joins me later. Of course, the question is, if it happened here, we can't necessarily say, neither of us are seismologists to say how likely it is to happen here, but given his field of expertise, if it happens here, what would happen to us? What would be our response? The opposition leader, I was at their press conference yesterday to hear what she had to say. She questions the Prime Minister's stance or statement, right, expressing disappointment. She did, to be fair, question if the statement was vetted, because potentially the Prime Minister was in transit. She didn't necessarily go this far, but yeah, if it wasn't vetted, then this goes to my point of, is everything that we get reported to as from the Prime Minister really from the Prime Minister? And the opposition leader said the government should have been more specific with regards to what they're offering. And the response from Venezuela is they thanked other countries. Our message already went out. They did not thank us. I asked the opposition leader, she didn't want to speculate on it. I'll speculate on it. She did point up the fact our Prime Minister is still persona non grata, and we have not yet visited Venezuela. We have not yet gone to Venezuela to see about the Dragon gas deal, which is one of the deals that presumably the PNM administration was relying on to get done by 2027. At this rate, it'll be highly unlikely, I think, for Dragon gas to flow in 2027. But I'm not entirely sure with regards to what work has been done, is being done, and is yet to be done in order to get that to pass. So, but it seems though there's a contentious relationship with Venezuela still between our government and the Venezuelan government, and I fear that's playing out even in this. Or because I suspect, and I didn't get into this, I didn't ask the opposition leader this, so sure, it's not her fault that she didn't respond to this, but given how we've acted with CARICOM, I suspect that one of the things this government wishes they could do is cut as much as possible any foreign outflow of money, in part because of how they handle CARICOM. But the opposition leader did say something that speaks to that, basically giving a warning. We need to, and I've said things like this before, we need to help others when they need it, particularly, of course, our neighbors, when they need it. So this is not luxury decisions. This is necessity time, because if it happened to us, we would hope that they would help us when and if we are ever at that level of need. Of course, you have to contrast that with the what could we actually offer that is practical in the moment. What could we actually, do for Venezuela that will make a difference beyond just, selling supplies and stuff. But part of that is also rallying our society to ask and to organize, and we did so, I believe, with St. Vincent and when the volcano went and other situations, to ask and organize relief supplies at the very least, to try to help what's going on. And of course, the migrant community probably is already seeking to do that, at least on a case-by-case basis for their families. But again, if we would want our neighbors to help us in our time of need, then we can't turn a blind eye now. It's a two-way street, being a good neighbor. The mayor of Port of Spain is warning that they might be unable to meet its June payroll obligations, right? Now, I guess one of the things is, I don't necessarily know. Yeah, right, government instructed corporations to pay civil servants back pay without providing necessary budget allocations amounted to poor fiscal policy. Does not have enough allocation to pay civil servant salaries this month. We have no allocation to pay salaries for July, August, and September. The obvious question, which might not be, well, I wouldn't say unfair or fair, but it might take it down a path that maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. Is this all of local government or only PNM areas? Or is it just Port of Spain? Because for whatever reason, there might be a specific issue, right? Whether it's personal between individuals or professional or what have you. Is there more to the matter with regards to Port of Spain finances the mayor is not revealing? Or is it just straight up central government does not actually know what it's doing when it comes to issuing policy decisions like this, right? It's hard to say. It could go either way. I won't be surprised. At this point, given how the government has acted in certain areas, ineptitude will not surprise me. Similar to the PNM. At some point, we need to not be surprised at how inept they can be. But ineptitude is not guaranteed, nor is it necessarily a regularized practice to the point where you should always expect it. Right? My argument is more, you should not be surprised if it comes up. I mean, who would have ever thought that a Minister of Finance would not understand the process of an audit and the need for it to be independent? Who would have thought that? And but flip side, we have a current Minister of Finance that doesn't understand the meaning of the word diversification, but he uses it regularly enough, or at least his government does. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Because then, of course, now it gets real complicated politically. Who's to blame? You have a PNM local government body, but to some extent it is dependent budget-wise on a UNC national government body. So, all right. With regards to a new arrest or a preventative detention order, a third person in the, for lack of a better way to put this, because I don't necessarily want to use a racial demographic, right? The 1% investigation, a third person has been detained under a PDO. It's very interesting with regards to what is the justification now of this PDO. Let's not forget that the state of emergency was not called because it was an emergency situation to go after the 1% who are potentially guilty of white-collar crime, whichever they are from the 1%. I'm not going to assume the entirety of the 1% of Trinidad is guilty, because that would be something like 10,000 people. So, national security stakeholders are asking for patience. And I will agree with their plea for the public to be patient and not jump to conclusion. I will juxtapose that with the reality. And the reason why it needs to be asked is in anticipation of the public potentially taking the context of recent events and the distrust for the criminal justice system. So I said this yesterday. One would think in 2026, particularly if you get a, let me not say that, that would be insulting. In 2026, in the current climate, it's easy to vilify the 1%. Ironically, that's the tactic of the Democrats and liberal progressives, not the tactic of Republicans and conservatives. So I don't know this whole thing about the Prime Minister wanting to be like, you know, Uncle Sam, or, you know, maybe not Sam, Uncle Trump. I don't know how much that holds water. That said, the assumption that it could be political might not be true. It could be. It doesn't help that the AG and the Prime Minister made a big stink about this. Maybe sometimes you should make a big stink about things when the police are going to do something actionable, tangible, if you are serious about the independence of the TTPS. Because, look, even I kind of had a Freudian slip just now and started off from the perspective of, you know, at least speaking about it as if it was political. And therein lies the problem, the environment that we're in. It is hard to have trust and confidence in a criminal justice system that has had a lot of issues throughout the years, that have had significant issues recently, particularly when it comes to issues that their political bosses have weighed in on that did not help. And now you have this situation where, regardless of who the target is and how justified or how suspicious, whatever suspicions the public has for the 1%, that is juxtaposed by the erosion of the trust and confidence in the criminal justice system. And the reason why, again, you have to ask the public to have patience is there probably are a subset of people who are more than ready to make wild assumptions, speculations, and conspiracy theories, because with regards to this subject, it's always been that. But now when you add all of the comments that the government and the national security leadership has caused over previous issues this year that eroded trust and confidence, now what do you give the benefit of the doubt? Do you give the benefit of the doubt to the police that everything is above board and everything is ethical and there's no political interference? I mean, doesn't help that the previous government kind of eroded at that concept that the police have political interference. Oh, wait, Gary is not 100% on my side. We need to replace him. How are we going to replace him? Well, we'll do all kind of schemes to replace him, which, ironically, the schemes in wake, you just had to go through the process. But at that point, the situation blew up in your face so bad, the backlash of not renewing Gary Griffith, you already was more or less experiencing it. It didn't matter anymore. So the separation between police and politics, right? Not necessarily something that people, I think, have a lot of faith in already. But then do you give the benefit of doubt to the 1%? And it's easy, again, to dislike, to hate, to be suspicious of the 1%. Because nobody ever gets rich off of, I don't know, successful business. Now, you could question the business acumen of a lot of our businessmen and businesswomen in TNT, right? We don't necessarily see innovation and sophisticated plans and investment opportunities and stuff and so forth, you know, on a regular basis. We see more mundane, very safe, very stay in your lane types of business decisions. But again, they are technically still citizens. The standard technically is still innocent until proven guilty. From what I understand, and I could be wrong, they haven't been charged. And that's fine. One of the things either Gavin Hero or Gary Griffith said, you know, we will get more information from the investigation and the police and the state when charges are laid, which is, I guess that's what they did with Kaya Sealy. I don't know, right? I don't necessarily know why it has to be this way. It probably runs the risk of having another communications fiasco, because the longer this plays out without some kind of transparency, no matter if we get the absolute truth at the end, will the public believe it? No one ever accused of the people in charge of being good at their jobs. Just saying. So I just hope this doesn't blow up in our face. I am all for letting the truth come out. The problem is, are we going to trust the truth if it is actually given to us? Because we are not accustomed to getting the truth. What we're accustomed to is politics and the political bacchanal. A couple of things quick. One, an activist has been detained for incendiary comments against the Hindu community and the Prime Minister. I don't know what the comments are. I can't judge them based on how severe they are and how justified they are on the individual merits of the comments. All I will say is this. First of all, his sister says he has sickle cell anemia. The continued detention is affecting his health. That is not a reason for him not to be detained, but that said, the government is responsible for his health. I do not have confidence that the government can be responsible for his health. It is what it is. So they better figure out exactly what level of liability they want to risk. Because there's the flip side of, if you are going to arrest people for incendiary remarks that they make online, because I believe it was online, right? Do yourself a favor and clean up your comment section. Start there. You could also, as a government, look to the P&M comment section as well to get just as equally vile stuff. But start cleaning up your comment section. And I don't mean the people that have negative things to say about you. I mean the people who support you to say incendiary things about others. Because if this is a thing now again, if he was calling for direct threats of violence, that's different. But if we're talking about racial and religious hostility that promotes contempt, contempt is not violence, content likely to inflame racial, religious, and political tensions in TNT, look at your comment section. The comment section of political streams, broadcasts on Facebook and YouTube are littered with horrific commentary, comments. Usually, if it's a UNC live stream, it will be UNC supporters doing the most. If it's a PNM live stream, it will be PNM supporters saying the most. And it is horrible. And you could argue that most, if not all of it, promotes contempt towards whatever the other racial, religious demographic is. And it inflames racial, religious, and political tensions. You see, the problem with that is, if they actually did their job fairly, evenly, to everyone that is potentially applicable with these kinds of subjective, open-ended statements, right? And that is a problem. But let's go with it. Let's go with the standard that they've set. If they did that, then not only will it be supporters that needs to be locked up by their standards, they themselves should be having their morning brews and their breakfasts behind bars, right? They themselves need to fix the prison cell. Just saying. With regards to some of the things that has been said by the politicians themselves on social media. Now, if he called directly for violence, if he called for things that are borderline sedition, fine, but that's not what was said in the report. Intelligence assessments indicate that the detainee operates or has access to several social media platforms and possesses the ability to rapidly disseminate inflammatory content, increasing risk of public disorder, retaliatory conduct, racial hostility, religious hostility, and threats to public safety. Have you seen some of the comment sections? Now, did he call for let's arm everybody to kill everybody else? Because I have been warning that the political speech has been incendiary for years now. But it's okay if a politician does it. I mean, to be fair, the political parties do not necessarily try to use this tactic against the political operators on the other side. But maybe this is the litmus test to see how far it could go. And then who knows, we might find PNM activists being locked up. Which, again, if that's the standard that society wants to adopt, fine. But they have UNC counterparts. Do not get it twisted. There's no morally correct side on this matter. And then finally, the PCA IT manager was gunned down in Charleville. A motive for the murder remains unknown. And that is a serious statement because it doesn't have to be the fact that he was working for the PCA that this happened. But the public is going to speculate and have fears and concerns about that. What could it mean? How wider might it go? We don't know. And again, we have reached the point now where I think this government is running the risk, and I've said this, I asked a question about this with regards to parliamentary privilege. This government is running the risk where the public is going to believe them even less than their predecessors because their starting point, unfortunately, was low because of what the public was accustomed to under the PNM. We're jaded. That administration jaded us. And instead of trying to rebuild back trust and confidence in the systems of government, they are continuing the behavior. So when time comes for them to release the truth to us and say, you want the truth, here's the truth, we might not believe them. And the ability to govern and lead might be, if it reaches to that point, completely shattered and unrecoverable. Let's take a break. When we come back, hopefully our guest says, stay tuned. This is Talk About WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
Get ready for Generations of Steel,
The ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus the talented youth band.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Clear. Saturday, July 11th.
at the iconic Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah.
And hear this one. First 800 tickets sold. Admit 2 buses on 1 ticket if bought by Saturday, June 27th.
Presented by Super Panman, Dingleston and Friends.
Supported by CCNTV 6, The Express Newspaper, and I-95.5 FM.
Generations of Steel, the biggest pan event after Panorama.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
You'd be surprised, a lot of the patients who present to us with infection in their feet, the infection would have started several days before. Now, the interesting thing is, neuropathy usually goes hand in hand with peripheral arterial disease. So these patients lose the sensation to feel. Now, they may have the ability to have crude touch or general sensation, but that fine sensation, for instance, when a needle sticks them or a thumbtack sticks them, they would lose that sensation.
Correct.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2, match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
I'm back here talking about the WSND Content Capital, and joining me in this time where his skills and analysis might be most relevant outside of any sort of police procedural, we have, of course, disaster management expert Ashraf Ali. And just to reiterate the point, because we haven't brought this up in a while, we call you that because not only are you accredited, that's your background, that's where you've taken up training, but you also teach courses in certain aspects of this at the very least, right?
Yes, Sean. And the irony behind it is when we heard this situation, unfortunate situation with the earthquakes in both, it's two of them, right?
Yes.
In Venezuela. Only recently, Trinidad and Tobago had a disaster risk management conference. Just a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, I should say, they had a disaster risk management conference in Trinidad and Tobago dealing with natural disasters and how you respond and all the other situations. And look what happened. Our closest neighbor, Venezuela, had 2 earthquakes, 7.2 followed by 7.5. And when you look at the type of devastation in terms of property damage, infrastructural damages, they have some injuries. I hope there's no serious. I hope there's no large number of fatalities.
The international reporting seemingly has a lower number than what you get from Venezuela itself. Right now, the BBC has a report. The acting President Rodriguez has apparently made a statement. The death toll is up to 589, whereas a lot of internationals are within the 100 to 200 range. But I knew that some Venezuelans, what they heard yesterday was it was 400 plus to 600. And that's, I think that's what either they estimate or what they know. And like 9/11, maybe the number comes down, fingers crossed, or maybe the number in other situations goes up.
So, unfortunately, in situations like these, numbers can increase because during the course of search and rescue, you will then find additional bodies, as the case may be. Because right now it's the recovery process, and a lot of feet on the ground and all the support agencies trying to deal with it. Now, it brings to the issue of how do we prepare, and are we properly prepared for disasters of this nature? We know that we have hurricane, the rainy season, and we always talk about preparation, and what you do. And sometimes we ask, how is the government preparing you? And I'm always say that the government could only prepare you up to a certain position, to a certain level. You have to take the necessary steps. Are you prepared for certain things? Now, a 7.2 plus a 7.5 in very close proximity of to each other. I think it's about 39 seconds apart from what I read. That's frightening. And when you look at the infrastructure in Venezuela compared to some of the infrastructure in Trinidad, I think we may have some similar type of infrastructure.
In terms of?
Some of our buildings, some of our residential areas. So you know that if we should get anything close to a 7 point something in Trinidad, we could end up in a situation similar to Venezuela. And that is something that we need to be very cognizant about and and take some serious measures in dealing with it. We have already, there are always a lot of issues when you talk about when we get high winds and rainfall, heavy rainfall. People started asking questions about building codes. Only recently, there was some freak weather in the Southland where houses, roofs blown off.
Right.
And we were discussing some of the building codes, whether or not they follow the proper building code, how you secure your roof and all of that.
I mean, part of it is when you hear about certain aspects, and I don't know if Town and Country is responsible for this aspect of it, but when you hear certain things about how people kind of get away with where they build their house, what they build as their house, or whatever the structure is, whether they build all the way to the road, I know of some instances like that. Whether they build on a hill, do they build safely, whether they build places they're not supposed to build on. So like when someone had a whole garage or a whole structure on top of an NGC gas line in a zone where you're not supposed to build, and it had utilities hooked up to it, and and you're just like, well, if no one is monitoring where and what is being built and what zones are not supposed to be built, then is anyone monitoring building codes and safety standards? It's kind of hard to have confidence because...
And that is a big issue. Now, right after the earthquake in Venezuela, there was one in Japan.
Oh!
Japan got a 6.9 a couple of days right after. However, you realize that when there was no, the reports from in Japan, there was no major infrastructure damages, no issues, nothing at all. They got a 6.9. And it's interesting to know that 6.9, say close to 7, in one continent as opposed to in the other continent. In another country, there is significantly different amount of infrastructure and damages. Is it because they are better prepared, or they have been compliant or more familiar with earthquakes in those regions that they build to withstand a certain degree of earthquakes and tremors?
Apparently they had 2.
Yes.
The first one was a 7.2.
Yeah, and a 6.9 afterwards.
And then, one report has a 5.8, but yeah.
Well, yeah. So, well, around our range.
Yeah. But it was more or less, it wasn't like if it was somewhere out at sea.
Yeah.
And the shock was weaker.
So in close proximity, but look at the difference in the damages that was caused and the loss of life that happened in both areas. Now, there's a lot of factors that can be taken into consideration why and how both continents reacted. A lot more has to be dealt with in terms of the depth and the magnitude and infrastructure that they have. A lot of science, but I'm just limited just basic, just for persons to understand that there is also understanding that preparedness was part of it. Japan accustomed getting tremors and earthquakes. So their infrastructure would have been they would have been building their infrastructures and their skyscrapers and their buildings to withstand a certain amount of, a certain magnitude. When you look at Venezuela, based on some of the economic challenges that Venezuela were facing for a number of years, housing, property, when they're building the properties, it may not have been to that standard, that level. So you got a 7.2, 7.5, and see devastation it causing. Bring it to Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of housing in building because we're talking about infrastructure that we want to put in place because lack of houses and low income. But low income in terms of what you're building, low income, but some of them are substandard. Are we going to wait for when we get an earthquake of that magnitude on land for us to realize that, hey, everything that we have been putting up will eventually come down and cause more damages to lives?
Because I'm just looking it up, right, and I knew some of this. Japan has strict building codes, but then it's not just that, okay, high quality materials. They have various ways where one of the things, of course, is stronger beams, thicker walls, etc., etc. But some of the other methods, which I think are the more advanced ones, are basically shock absorbent systems in how you construct, which to some extent separates, in a way, the building from the foundation by utilizing various materials that could absorb the shock and kind of move, right? And not cause a rigid structure to then be susceptible to that. But I think they also have this tendency. I remember hearing this about Japanese homes. They're not like our homes in the sense of, well, you build it and it's supposed to be there forever, right? Some of these, and I'm talking small buildings, the high-rises, they have all of these advanced techniques. Some of these smaller, low-income, low-rise buildings, they're just designed to bend and flex and to have some kind of give to them, right? And on some level, for some of them, if an earthquake destroys it, they are cheaply enough made, and they're not meant to last forever, so it's not a big deal to have to replace them. Of course, these are the single-story type structures, so you're not going to do this for a skyscraper, for a government building or a corporate structure, right? Yeah. You're going to put the investment in, but then it comes back down to, you can have all the codes in the world, you have to enforce it.
And we always come back to the word enforcement.
True.
Always come back to the principle behind enforcement. And even, so now we're talking about enforcement when it comes to building codes. Do we enforce them? Do we address some of them? We have codes for building on next to waterways. We know that we have several properties that have been washed when water courses. So you build your property too close to a water course, the water course changes, and somebody blaming the government for not fixing the drain because they lost the property instead.
Well, doesn't it seem as though everything that we talk about is mainly with regards to water?
Yeah, well,
right? Whether it's on a hill, in floodplains, you know, it's water.
But see, we because of our climate, we have the rainy and we have the dry. During the rainy season and / hurricane season, our major concern is flooding, landslips, because of our environment and geographic locations. So then you're building on hills, you have to build structures that can support, the foundation has to be able to support slippage. You have to know the type of soil that you're going to build on, because you're not going to build in an area that has slippage that could cause that the soil is not able to withstand heavy rainfall, because you know it is potential for slippage over a period of time. So if it is, you know, that you're building on a slope, you have to invest proper foundation. Proper foundation costs money. A lot of persons not doing that. When you look at some of the infrastructure, you're building on a low-lying area, we have flooding. Are you going to build flats in a low-lying area, or you're going to build your house on stilts, or even going to raise your foundation to support, so in event that you have flooding, that your whole house is not flooded out. There's a lot of things when you talk about preparation for disaster management and in disaster management, how you prepare for certain things. Not only preparing for when the disaster arises, you know, it's preparing in event that it should. So you don't prepare for when it reach. You prepare for an event that it should. And sometimes we consider that, you know, like, hey, Trinidad God is our Trinity, so nothing gonna happen to us.
And that was my concern, because we apparently have, and I could be wrong, right? I'm not a geologist or seismologist or whatever it is. We apparently have 3 fault lines running through this island.
And we do get tremors on a regular basis.
And these fault lines go west and are connected to the whatever tectonic system that might have caused those 2 earthquakes a couple days ago. So one of the things is, that's why I brought up water. Not only do we have to consider all of the large structures that might be susceptible to an earthquake, because I don't know if we have proper codes to withstand that in our regulations, but also think about all of the hills that have been built up. And I'm pretty sure the main issue that they would have been designed to protect against would have been landslides from water. But what about landslides from tectonic activity? Because I think, now this is anecdotal, someone, a Venezuelan migrant, told me yesterday one of the issues was the fact that the high-rise buildings collapsed with people in it, right? Yeah. Now we have that in Port of Spain. We have housing projects in Port of Spain.
And not only Port of Spain, across the country now we haven't high-rise building complex.
But then you also have to consider Diego Martin, Maraval, Cascade St. Anne's, right? Amongst other areas of the East-West corridor. Some of these hill construction areas already look precarious as it is. If one house at the top falls,
it's gonna cause a cascading effect. So you have multiple areas. I think it's only when these things happen in other countries, then we take about 2 minutes, or no, like I said, 2 minutes, and say, wait, look what happened there. It's a good thing it happened in Trinidad. However, they may have said that when it happened in another country, and look what happened to them.
Right.
So it is not that it is not that we are immune to it. We continue to say that we're not getting hurricanes, or we're lucky. It only takes one hurricane. It takes only one hurricane out of all the hurricanes, right, to cause serious devastation in Trinidad and Tobago. It takes only one out of all the tremors that we get that actually have a significant magnitude earthquake to cause devastation in Trinidad and Tobago.
I want to, let me be specific. I don't know who's going to do the physical rescue if something like that happens here, right? I don't think our fire service has enough equipment, not even going into training. But one of the real issues, I think, that is unspoken in this country, that you do see the consequences of day to day, is emergency response with regards to things like ambulances, right? Healthcare emergency response. Because the hospitals can't get to the victims. You have to figure out ways to get the victims to the hospitals, assuming they're still standing. One of the things that I think a lot of people secretly know, but it's not necessarily in the national conversation, is if you have an emergency, waiting for an ambulance might be, and usually if in the States, no, you wait for the ambulance. You know, just take someone and try and carry them a car that might not be safe. But in Trinidad and Tobago, you might die before the ambulance gets there, whatever it is, whether it's a car accident, you're shot, whatever it is. And at times, people, even the police, get the victim in the car, take them to the hospital because it's a lot faster. If we have something like this, I don't know how we're going to even be able to respond because we have private ambulance companies. But let's be real, that's not really an infrastructure for national emergency response to have private ambulance companies.
So the thing about it is that that is not the proper response of allowing everybody to bring victims to the hospital environment, right?
Yeah.
Over the years, we have been dealing with, as you say, I'm one of the mass casualty management instructors, right? Certified in Trinidad and Tobago, together with a lot of persons within the medical facility. So over the years, we have been building capacity to train for the proper response where you will have response on the field, because like everybody else in Trinidad, they know, put them in a vehicle and go them out.
Right.
In a disaster situation like that, it may not be feasible, so you have to get a response out. The challenge you continue to face is that training is not isolated. We need much more training to encompass responding agencies working together in collaboration.
Because let me then adjust. Because part of the response in the field would be the paramedics in the ambulances, right? But again, when we are basically dependent on private companies, and I'm not expecting a private company to be an emergency responder.
And that is a reality of it, because we do not have the full amount of resources available sitting idly by, or I should say sitting, waiting for a response. So we say, okay, we don't need this one. The part and parcel of this whole response is a collaborative effort. Yes, you may get private ambulances assisting in responding. They can respond, but they will work alongside certain agencies. This is where a lot of agencies have to build memorandums of understanding between agencies, how they work together. But
also standards of training.
Yes. So holistically, this level of training is not always bought into by the persons that need to.
Right.
Because one, it's time consuming, and we are voluntarily performing the duties. You don't get anything for this. Part of our giving back to the national community, right? Two, it costs to put the logistics in place that has to be funded by an agency. Something the ministry.
This is the training or
the training program, just the training program,
right.
Because the logistics behind it.
Well, I would argue that it's fine if it's private personnel. Maybe the government needs to foot the training bill. To kind of figure out a compromise, right?
So the government does in fact fit the training bill together with other other agencies like PAHO does work support. What I'm saying holistically, it cannot be just one-off. You know, this level of training is continuous. Because you're preparing persons, and as persons in the environment change in different agencies, like in the hospital environment, police environment, the police, the fire, the other areas, when they have to work together. But there's a constant training. But what I'm saying is that we don't see it as significant enough as part and parcel of holistical training, because we have never had any significant disaster to put us in a position where we have number of lives being lost, for us to feel and for the cry, for the public outcry that, listen, we need to do something better.
But about, what, 6 years ago, there was one that was a lot closer, and we felt it, right? And I guess this is one of those things where it's one thing to talk about Japan or Southeast Asia tsunamis. Oh, that's unfortunate for them. But this is
right across Europe.
Yes, there's them and then there's us. There's no Pacific Ocean in between. There's no other continent. This is the continent we are technically a part of, yes. and that's the problem. We are in the middle of the Caribbean, whatever tectonically the Caribbean is on, and whatever tectonically South America is on, and it comes with great benefits, and we have not had to deal with the potential consequences, and hopefully we don't, but to say that it's guaranteed that we will not would be, I guess, that's the problem with your job, right? You have to try to convince people, well, look, we need a minimum expenditure, right? And it might seem unjustified, and it might seem wasted, but we need a minimum expenditure. Because if the worst comes to pass and we're not prepared, not only will it be the immediate damage, but then it could be damage that harms the country, the economy.
Right now,
down the line.
Venezuelan medical infrastructure and medical support prior to this disaster would have already been under some strain.
Right.
Right? Financially and economically and manpower resources and everything like that.
You could say ditto for us.
Yes. This situation has just exacerbated their current or the previous situation when you have multiple victims now, a lot of fatalities. So they're putting this, the infrastructure, the hospital infrastructure, all the support mechanism is going under strain. So we have to understand when disasters of this nature takes place, is not only one area is affected, it has a multiple effect across administrations and across different supporting agencies are put under strain at the same time.
Because the resources get sucked.
Right?
And then everywhere else now.
I saw some articles where persons are complaining that Trinidad and Tobago is not supporting enough, not supporting Venezuela enough in terms of putting foot, sending resources in terms of manpower resources and response. That is not what is needed right now. What is needed right now is what Venezuela should need. They know what they need. They don't need anybody just to come and bring things to you when they don't know how they're going to utilize the resources.
Right.
The administration did in fact put out and say that whatever assistance they need, they're willing to assist. And that is why you have international relationship in terms of sending resources. You don't just send something to send all the resources, and when you send it there, they don't know, because sending resources to our agency, who's going to fit the bill to the logistics for them?
Right.
Who's going to support them?
When you say that, you could send infinite water, but once they receive it, they have to figure out where to put it and how to distribute it.
How to distribute it. When they send manpower resources at the same time, manpower resources has a bill attached. The bill attaches, they need to be fed, they need to be housed.
Right.
Who's going to put
if you send our people, where they're going to sleep?
And not our people alone.
Anybody.
So you have to put your house in order, because you have to be willing to don't add another burden to the country that is already in burden.
And the thing with the burdens like this, we're accustomed to flooding. Not necessarily flooding that's going to like affect the entire nation at once and not shut everything down. But we're accustomed to flooding, and the thing about flooding is, I feel, yeah, it might be bad, a lot of property damage, but in a lot of cases, you have a much better chance of, you could get sick, but physically, otherwise, you wouldn't be damaged. And we could deal with that, I assume. Emergency like this, or if it was something like a tsunami, so a different kind of flooding, where there's some level of physical shock and violence, where you have crush damage and blunt force trauma damage on a wide scale. So you have injured. So you have people that probably can't walk, incapacitated, might have internal injuries. If a tsunami, because seismic activity is what causes tsunami, then you also might have people who, drowning and,
and
stuff like that.
From the evacuation procedure from the coastline. So it's a lot of logistics you have to put in place.
So I don't know if we will be ready for that, because we knock on wood, have been lucky. We haven't had anything like a single building collapse. Now imagine if we had an earthquake.
Multiple buildings.
Yeah, East Port of Spain, all the high rises in East Port of Spain, right? They might be old enough, or one mountainside of take your pick. It doesn't have to be all of Digger Mountain.
I think we have a call on the line.
No, I think they were talking about tsunamis.
Yes. So when you remember when we had an earthquake in Port of Spain a couple of years ago. A lot of buildings in Port of Spain started shaking.
Well, I think the epicenter was out at sea.
Yeah, no,
but it was magnitude 7.
Yeah, we felt it in Port of Spain to some extent, where buildings you actually saw some buildings.
Digger Martin, you felt,
You realize what was the issue, right? Everybody came out of the building onto the streets watching the building shaking, with a lot of glass and all, and everybody watching the building shaking, and walking the streets, and everybody wanted to go in the vehicle driving, going home.
Hold on, I would just like to point out, literally, the same trainees would be watching a movie. What are you standing next to the building for?
So we can laugh at it now and find how comical it was at this point in time, because there was no injuries or serious injuries to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be comical anymore.
Yes.
When persons get injured in doing that same thing, or even we have fatalities. So we have to learn from our mistakes going forward. And one of the mistakes we normally make is that the biggest issue that we have in Port of Spain, when even rainfall for a period of time with the flooding, everybody needs to leave Port of Spain with their vehicle.
Yes.
Because there's no way that they can come out of Port of Spain. So you have traffic congestion. So,
well, could you imagine an earthquake in Port of Spain that causes structural damage? Because the reason why I say that is,
so you will have a lot of persons trapped in their vehicles added.
Right. Think of the two ways out of Port of Spain. Right. You have city gates where yes, you have the highway and the main road. What do both go under? An overpass. Then you have the Lady Young, a mountain road.
And slippage, right? So you're possibly slippage, and your slippage on that entire roadway could be compromised.
So because you were leading up to it, it's not, and you mentioned it when everybody got into their car to go home. It's not just the potential of casualties because of building collapse, but then it is the aftermath. You might have injured, not necessarily incapacitated, right, or just regular people, and they're cut off in Port of Spain. They could walk east. Do you want 50,000 people just randomly walking east, right?
So in a lot of these situations that happen across the globe, we need to take these situations, say thank God it hasn't happened as yet, but we still have the opportunity to prepare for it in a better, to get ourselves much more prepared in the eventuality it should happen. I'm not saying that we would, when it happened, we would be in a better position than anybody else, because we don't know what the level of devastation could take place, right? But we should be in a position to recover faster and have a better response. That is the two main issues with the disasters, you know? The level of response and the ability to recover. If your response is lethargic and takes more time, that disaster becomes prolonged, and the more the disaster becomes prolonged, it means that we are going to have more issues to deal with in terms of more fatalities, more challenges facing, and more resources to deal with.
But also, am I correct in that the Defense Force is mostly located in the Northwest Peninsula, between the barracks along Circular Road and the bases at the end, right? So part of the extra resources for personnel for emergency response is stuck here, And then, of course, they might have medical facilities here. But if we have a national emergency where transportation networks are clogged, congested, or cut off, blocked,
Yes.
you know, we might have issues now with certain government responses throughout the rest of the country. But then also, I don't know if we have the medical facilities. All right, we try to deal with, you know, whatever we have to deal with. We'll be cut off from the other hospitals, right? Assuming that they might have capacity. Port of Spain General, anything like this happens in Port of Spain General, and all the other hospitals will be
And the thing about it is that the other hospitals may have the capacity.
But how do we?
But the problem is that we're still in the challenge of how we get in, diverting the personnel, even the personnel and the victims, to another location when we already have challenges when it comes to traffic management and gridlocks.
Because it's not just a hospital. It's also depending on the level of trauma.
There's a lot.
The surgical teams and capacity.
There's a lot more to go into just saying, okay, I'll send it to the hospital. And that is where, in the level of training that we do in mass casualty management, you get to understand it's not just taking a victim and going to the hospital. The more victims you send to the hospital, you overwhelm the capacity of the hospital to manage, and then you put the hospital in a mass casualty situation. So you're creating an emergency or a disaster within the hospital environment when you were trying to avoid that. Because the basic objective right now in any disaster is to save as much life as possible.
And then now, depending on how bad the disaster is, sometimes it brings people together. And sometimes you see the ugly side of the desire to survive.
There is.
Let's put the other hat on now, you know, because now one of the issues is we can't just take it for granted. Oh, well, the police could help.
Well,
because the police might actually need to also be available to secure and to prevent.
And they will always have the criminal elements who are looking for an opportunity to prey on these vulnerable individuals at the same time. So your resources are not stretched with work. So law enforcement resources now will be stretched across, further stretched, because you have to deal with the potential of looting and other type of crimes that we deal with. Even on a normal day, when we have some traffic in Port of Spain, as we have in you see persons trying to snatch persons things from their vehicle. Somebody happened to unfortunately shut down on the BTM highway because of mechanical problems. What happened? They get robbed, right? So the criminal elements doesn't even worry about whether or not you are already under distress. Their objective is to cause more distress because they have their own agenda at hand, right? So yes, they will always have a lot of issues to deal with, and I empathize with Venezuela at this point in time, based on everything that's going on with Venezuela. To add this disaster to their overall situation, it's not something that I would want anybody.
Other things we didn't touch on, you know, electricity and water, right? To what extent now? Because that will also inhibit the capacity to respond, right?
Yeah. So infrastructure, utilities, communication networks going down, and a lot of things that you have to look at. So when you deal with a lot of these training for disasters, it's incorporating a lot of different stakeholders coming together to understand, listen, we all have to work together as a team. Even if we were not a team before, the team must be put together in order to be able to respond holistically. So it takes a lot to get that level of training in, and training and retraining, and keep on bringing persons up to speed in certain things. But we are getting there, not as fast as I would like.
Well, therein lies the problem, right?
If it is up to me, I would have like to have the opportunity to have much more training available for all the agencies, first responding agencies and support agencies on an annual basis. Probably half yearly, you do much more, but like everything else, there is a financial constraint to certain things, and you have to weigh your financial situation as what you could afford and what you can afford in terms. And sometimes we sacrifice some things, and we may pay the cost at some point in time.
Can't we on some? And therein lies the problem, because one of the things, I believe we might have spoken about this before, I marvel at the Americans' willingness to throw resources. Are we going to throw all these resources just to save one person? You're going to have helicopters and boats, and one person, doesn't matter, right? Coast Guard, park rangers, search and rescue teams, sheriff's county office, fire service, wildlife rescue, all kind of stuff. So we pulled out, right, just to get one hiker off of a mountain that's been, I don't know if we will be able to get the resources to get there. Maybe, maybe not. Part of it is management and reduction of corruption, yes. But one of the things I think with resources in place for mass casualty disasters is also just having resources, better resources in place for day-to-day emergencies, which I think is lacking. And on some level, it's not like we're going to just have mass casualty resources and we leave that in a box, never to be touched. It's like, no, some of the ambulances and the training will still be applicable of, well, what if a building collapses? Or what if we do have, some flooding where there's some great emergency, or there's a landslide of a mountain, and even just better medical training for staff. Day-to-day medical responses, if we have an expectation of emergency response and all of a sudden now we're not saying, ooh, where's the ambulance going to come to get this guy in the car crash? It's like, no, we up in the day-to-day standards, and that would help the disaster response, no?
Well, individually, the agency does do their training in-house. So I'm aware that there are training done in-house, but they are done within the agencies. When you're dealing with mass casualties, those agencies cannot work in silos. They have to work together as a team. So yes, they have the resources, they have the internal training, but you don't know those training, and you can't wait for those training to be applicable on an emergency, right?
So but you can arrange things beforehand, right?
That's what I'm saying. When you look at it holistically, it's integrating of all these stakeholders and resources, these agencies working together. You can't wait for the emergency for us to work together. So you have to have the training, and it's not about the resources alone. Sometimes, like I said, training is not, training is part and parcel of it. We must be on the same page, understand the responsibilities of each other, and working together as a larger team, because at some point in time, we have the issue of who always want to be in charge and who is the boss. But when we're working together...
But wouldn't that be part of it? You just set clear, objective guidelines.
Yes.
There's no, well, if it's a this, a plan, and a who thing, and in this... No. It's like, maybe for certain situations, you might have some variation, but for the most part, so this level of disaster, these people are in charge, these are the protocols, that's it.
We do have that level taking place. So on a day-to-day basis, you will see police working with EHS. If it's an accident or something like that, together with the fire service working together in that little team. So they have pockets of teams working together. You have the defense force working with the police in certain areas. You saw the in COVID, we had the defense force, the police, and the Ministry of Health working together. So you have pockets.
It's just that I feel for emergency response, we need things to be a bit more automatic and more set in stone and put in place, because we won't have to. COVID, on some level, we were afforded time to kind of figure it out, right? We didn't have to deal with the surprise factor that Italy did or India did, right? So we had a little bit of warning. Something like this, we're not going to have warning.
No, it's so true.
We have Sanfan on the line. Caller, good morning. You on here?
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning.
Morning.
My heart goes out to those, the people of Venezuela and especially the victims of this disaster. Well, I think you all made a slight mistake when you all said a 5 point something. It was a 7.2 and a 7.5.
No, this is
I think
Japan.
according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
Caller, it was Japan.
I still think Venezuela has the construction, because they have changed the construction methods back in the 70s to accommodate these sort of seismic events. So I think based on that, we haven't seen it could have been worse. Because let me tell you something. When I lived in Venezuela, I experienced just a 5 point something. I lived on the 19th floor of a building, and it was the worst experience when that building started to sway. I actually thought that was the end. It is that bad, and I think Trinidad and Tobago, because we don't have that experience, we are still complacent. And I'm not talking about the people. I am speaking about the authorities. Up to now, we still have people building willy-nilly. Once you have money, you don't have to get an approved plan by town and country. And the state, over multiple governments, no, the state has not seen it fit to clamp down on people just building ad hoc and having more stringent processes in terms of building codes. We have, and God really had to like Trinidad and Tobago, you know.
Yes.
Seriously. Because we have been so lucky in so many instances, that we really take it for granted. And the state, I hope this is a wake up for the state to understand. We have to now get stricter building codes and get more enforcement. You can't tell me that you have officers in town and country departments in districts, and if you have a district and you're driving around your district, as you're supposed to drive around your district, and you see something going up there, and you know that's not on your list of approved stuff, you're supposed to stop that project. I said, let me see, inquire, let me see your building approval, the approval. And if you don't have one, shut the project down. But that is not happening in Trinidad and Tobago, because lawlessness as usual. Have a good weekend, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller. No, the 5.8 was Japan, in what might just be a coincidence, but Venezuela had 2 magnitude 7 plus earthquakes, and then Japan had a 7.2 and a 5.8 yesterday. So we're talking days apart.
Days apart, yeah.
2 double earthquake events. The situation in Japan, the 2 earthquakes were further apart, whereas in Venezuela they were quite close to each other. So that was where the one with the 5.8 happened. And Japan is a good example of what, not just stronger building codes, stricter building codes, but also putting in specific strategies into the building codes to address earthquakes. So it's not just, we'll just make the building stronger. No. We're going to put certain things in place to deal with distributing or mitigating the shock waves. Yeah. So
when you come to the enforcement aspect of it, I think in my personal view, there's 2 aspects of it. When you build in for private, I think that you take certain amount of risk for your private property, right? It may be controversial. However,
I would agree with you, except the hill stuff, because
but at the same time, you take some level of risk building for your private. When you're building for public use, and especially the state is building for public use, you cannot be taking those risks, because the state you will have the risk of the lives of individuals at your hand.
Let's not forget a former minister. He has a high-rise, high-end or mid-level, I don't know exactly. I assume it's more higher-end than mid-level property, right around the corner from us, right? So it's one thing if you want to say private use for your private dwelling.
Yes.
That's not private use, right? But again, also I'll say certain things, certain situations where it's like building on a mountainside or a hillside, it's not, to me, the consequences are not going to be limited only to the homeowner. in that instance, right? There's certain
that's what I say.
aspects where you have a duty.
You're taking certain amount of risk. When you take those risk, consequences are there are consequences to the risk. So then if it is
the property damage to your neighbor is your responsibility.
It's your responsibility. We have a caller.
Yeah, sure. Arima, on the line. Caller, good morning, you're on here.
Hi, good morning, Sean.
Morning,
good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning.
Now, it takes just one splash to end it all. Look what's going on in Venezuela.
So true.
Oh, Lord. I can't understand, Lord. So much of people lost their lives, and they said that is not all. They have to get more bodies again because the building just collapsed. And have people in the building collapsed on people, so it probably have plenty more dead bodies not accountable for yet.
Mm-hmm.
You see how things happen? Now, we in Trinidad, everybody feel that nothing like this can't happen here. You understand? It could happen anytime, anywhere. Because one splash and your whole life could be taken away from you. But I think if they need the help, this government here should stand with them because we are so close by and you don't know what next. It could be if we were in that same predicament, other country, we will need other country to help us. So I think that a little help will go a long way in Venezuela. This government here should try and see what they could do to help them. That will be reasonable. It will be good. And talking about a little thing, I hear with this Batman thing, I heard that the whole Batman, I want to know, like you have a car you're driving, don't you need your keys to start the engine, the engine? How Batman and them get this thing to work without a key? I can't understand that. But Superman, the whole Batman, Superman out there still, they have to hold Superman too.
Mm-hmm.
So we wishing and hoping for the best. Batman, Superman, and Robin. We watching the comedy on TV. We watching the TV, and we never see Batman have been held. They never held Batman on the TV. Look what's going on. So they held Batman now. So they have to hold Robin and Superman now. Thank you very much. Good program as always.
Thank you, caller. Now the question is, will he be in the cowl for the mugshot? but I don't want to get sidetracked with the battle debacle. Yeah. One thing, I think, listening to you and your stance on what is needed technically in situations like this, and listening to criticisms of the government's communication, I think this is just as a by the way point. You can be technically correct strategically with what you say on the practicalities of what is necessary, and be politically / publicly wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right. And I'll just leave it there because technically what Ashraf said, which is very correct, I have no reason to disagree with him. And he didn't say this in defense of the government, but it does kind of put the government statements under a different lens. And perhaps this is why the opposition leader said, was it vetted? Because a technical person might have crafted the statement, but you didn't necessarily have someone to analyze how will it come across to the public, our public, the Venezuelan government, the regional governments, the regional public, right? And it might, at the end of the day, the consequences though might be very minor, so we don't necessarily need to harp on it too much. But
I want to say that no matter what political affiliations and political challenges that our Caribbean countries face with each other, because not everybody is on the same page sometimes. You'll have a little difference of opinions and views.
But there's certain principles that...
But when it comes to disasters across the Caribbean, we have never not assisted in some way. We have never left
Yes.
our Caribbean family by the way, and say we're not helping. All administration comes out across the Caribbean and say we will live to assist. Sometimes persons believe that the assistance is taking up all the resources and just flying into the country. There's a lot of things that may happen.
There's practicality what you said. Yeah. We need to know what you need because we might waste your time and energy.
I do not think that it is going. That is what sometimes the public wants to see, because they see some countries flying in this and flying in that, and they believe that is.
So here's the thing. Part of it too is the official message and the actual message don't have to be the same.
No. So
because part of it is you need on the surface for everybody to see a certain message.
So let's bring it down to locally. When we have flooding taking place in different areas, some of the responses by the public is they want the agencies responsible for, the agencies responsible for these areas, or the ministers and that kind of thing, to be seen physically doing some things, and to be seen doing...
And I'll tell you why. You need to see indicators that will give you a sense of urgency and competence. Whether or not those indicators that you need to see psychologically, it actually has anything to do with urgency and competence, you need to see it. The trick is to know when you need to do these things.
Right.
Just for that, and then how to actually, behind the scenes, know, okay, but the real work is this, and that has to also get done.
So that is what I'm saying. The objective here is not, the objectives should always be, or the focal point should always be the victims. Should always be the victims. Right? No. When I say the victims, I'm trying to show, I'm highlighting, just trying to make an example here to show regionally and locally how we do certain things.
Right.
We provide resources for some of the victims, but we provide resources for some of the victims for just to get public commentary, not understanding that the resources we provided for the victims is not what the victims need at this point in time.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to know how to separate. So it's like leadership functions. When a big general does his dog and pony show, there's no tactical or strategic value briefing the press, right? But you do certain things so that sometimes, ironically, you're kind of doing it just so that the public will have confidence in the situation. So that you could then be free to do the work uninhibited with, oh God, well, where were they? They didn't show up. Where were they during this crisis? Where were they during that crisis, right? So you put on the show where it doesn't have that much practical value, right? But by putting on the show, it forestalls all of that unnecessary criticism.
I am very optimistic and hopeful that whatever responses and whatever thoughts, whatever response and support our government is giving the Venezuelan government, it's based on the fact that our relationship in terms of the victims are the ones that need to be supported, and our relationship shouldn't be affected by anything else other than that.
I'll just say this, the show cannot be to the detriment of the actual practical effort.
Yeah.
It cannot. We have Dabadi on the line. Caller, good morning. You on here?
Hi, Sean. Morning. Hi, yes, good morning. Pleasant morning to my colleague in San Fernando. Yeah, my volume was still up. I now muted it. Thanks. With respect to the Venezuelan Trinidad foreign relationship, I think though with that disaster, we should have I want to say proactive, but we are so close to them that some level of urgency should have been taken. We have quite a lot of volunteers plus other manpower that we can utilize. So I don't know if it's based on the diplomacy, but right now you could see that they need equipment, heavy equipment, and I think by now we might have been able to carry 1 or 2 over. However small it is, it would help because there might be still some people caught under those rubbers or the large concrete that they're still. Because up to yesterday they were still pulling out people. So I think that we should have seen some more urgency with that response, being that we are so close to them. I mean, Guyana might be closer, and I'm not sure. But we are very close to them, and that level of diplomacy should have been shortcutted, and we be able to help our neighbors much faster. I heard, what's her name, the Venezuelan lady who always asks for help on behalf of Venezuela, Gonzalez. She was saying that there are things that they need urgently. So I don't think that it was going to be a problem for us to get water and some other food items across there as soon as possible. So I don't want to blame anybody, but somehow following the diplomacy is not really helping that much. My opinion this morning is that we should have been able to help much faster as soon as the incident took place, that we should have been able to start putting things in place. I don't know if we did, but if not, we should have started seeing people, aircrafts and things going over there to assist. Thanks for the opportunity. Sean, you and ASP have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Paula. To some extent, what he's saying goes in line with what I said. Like, you want to see certain things to say, well, we're on top of it. Don't question it, right?
Standard operational procedures across the board in disaster response, 72 hours is when you start to send resources in.
Right.
No.
What?
We have, I hear what a lot of persons are saying. Just remember, it is not about just picking up and taking our car and going across. There's a lot of logistics in place in terms of the level of resources. Like you remember, I just said earlier, what the public perception of the level of response might be too lethargic. What is happening behind the scenes might be more fast-paced than what is you're actually seeing.
And that's why I said, you need to kind of show something, right? If you could show them what's actually happening, and that's enough. But I think, look at what he said. Well, we need water. Now, the issue is not they need water, so we need to send water. That's the first step. But then the second step in my mind is, but if everybody send, well, you need water, so we all just send water, and to the detriment of sending anything else. They might have way too much water.
And water is not required.
And not enough medicine.
Right.
And yes, maybe the first day it is what you need, we just send it.
Sometimes,
right?
Sometimes your level of response must be tuned as to what the victims and what the responding agencies need. They could say, listen, this is what we require at this point in time.
But the thing is, they will say we need water, but then there has to be some level of what's the word? When you organize the joint effort.
Yeah.
Because what if America gives them all the water they need? Then they might not need water from us. And then it might be better for us to figure out, okay, well, what else do you need?
And there's a lot of NGOs will be currently in Venezuela doing all the logistics and preparing what is needed for at that time. And international agencies will be coordinating those levels of logistics.
Now, to be fair, the caller, that's easier said than done, by the way, because it's not as though, now maybe with digital technology, you'll be able to track all the relief supplies, but remember, the supplies are going to a zone where infrastructure is not necessarily going to be all there, right, to be able to do so. Even if you have battery-powered computers, you still need communications to send the information or whatever. So that's a whole sort of stuff that technology might eventually solve, but probably didn't solve just yet. I'll say this, one of the things, like when he said, heavy equipment, more heavy equipment to Venezuela. Logistics, just because you have it on a port doesn't mean it could get to where it's needed.
Any time frame that you would like it to.
One of the things I thought that might be interesting if the region can invest in, because this might be applicable whichever island has a disaster, heavy lift helicopters. The U.S. Army has Chinook's twin rotor. They could lift heavy equipment, but also they could carry people as well and cargo internally. And this is the thing, if CARICOM was more than what it is, then maybe an initiative like that could happen where no one country has to have that beta. Because imagine if we had a disaster in Port of Spain, and we don't have land routes for vehicles to come in. We might want to be able to have helicopters there. And look, St. Vincent and Grenadines, Grenada, wherever, whatever disaster happens. No, it's not a caller. It's time to wrap up. The thing is, it might not take a 7.2 earthquake if it happens in or around Port of Spain for a disaster to happen. And town and country, I assume when political interference took hold, who get in a favor for what, and then eventually who get in a corrupted favor for what, and then eventually who run in a corrupted racket. Well, at some point, the day-to-day operation of town and country would be more difficult, even by those well-meaning individuals in public service.
I think people misinterpret what responses look like. They have a view of our response.
Well, true.
Right, and the movies give you a lot of response, where you see.
But it's done by writers who don't.
Yeah, because that's scripted. There's a lot of logistical arrangements together with international agreements that you have to work out before you can just go and just say, I'm going to send. So I know Dabidi said heavy lifting equipment. I just want to throw this out. Yes, we may say heavy lifting equipment, but I believe it is not necessary to send heavy lifting equipment there unless it is requested, because the logistics to carry the heavy equipment across there is going to cost money. Trinidad and Tobago has to fund it. Right, because you're going to lend support. They can't tell Venezuela, hey, you got to pay for it.
It's not cynicism. That money could have been used for something else.
But let's hypothetically say, and this is something, the reality of when you're sending too much resources to a location, the resources land on that area, and it cannot be utilized. It is that particular equipment is now being paid for to be there together with the manpower to utilize it, and that money is just sitting there because it is not utilized. It is not required for the effort, because I don't need that equipment.
Yeah. And again, that money could have been used to pay for something else in the effort.
And then we'll have a situation where you run up a budget, run up a cost for equipment that is sent there that has to be covered, and it was never utilized in a manner that was supposed to be utilized. So it's a lot of logistics behind
it. Very quickly, can you give us a 2-minute comment on the topic we were speaking about off air before we go, or is that impossible? And
which one? Which one that is?
The current investigations.
Well, let's put it this way. Up to now, nobody knows what the investigation is.
Right.
And that itself has a lot of questionable questions to answer, because
this is the business people who were detained and are being investigated.
It is not normal business practices within the organization when
of the TTPS.
Yes, over the years historically, where these type of things are happening and nobody really knows what is really taking place, because it's happening very I should say
secretively.
It's not secretively per se, because you get...
But unknown.
It's unknown, but you really don't know what is the reasoning behind certain things. No.
And procedure would give us...
some. Yes, and some of the procedures would have been... when I'm reading some of the comments that has been on social media, because of the same thing, the lack of proper communication allows a window for a lot of different speculation and comments taking place. Persons are asking why it is that the TTPS communication messaging is trying to highlight, no offense, arrest doesn't mean. Why does it highlight it? Because the average individual, right?
Usually you highlight something for a reason.
You once a person has been detained by police, you get a whole narrative of what they commit, whether innocent or guilty or not. The reputation don't go through the drain. Are you trying to protect reputation at this point in time? that going down the drain one time.
In politics, this is not a way to protect reputation,
No.
and I'll say that. We have to end there.
Sure.
But I'll just add, I think past events and the lack of trust and confidence in police is compounding everything that you just said there.
So
if it was years before, it might not have been that bad. But now, I don't know. All right, we have 10 questions next with Andy Johnson at 10 a.m. Don't miss it. But that's it for us. We have to go. So until we see you next weekend, stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Don't forget, it's nice to be nice. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Ladies and gentlemen, Provi QRC presents Steel at Sunset, Saturday, July 4th at Queens Royal College. Come and enjoy an evening of sweet steel pan music from 6:30 to 9. Tickets cost $150 and can be bought at Providence Girls Catholic School and Queens Royal College. Refreshments on sale. No glass bottles allowed. Don't miss it.